think we're live here. Let me just double check this. It says there's some people waiting. If you can hear me, leave a comment in the chat. Because I still don't see that I'm live, but it says we are. Okay, here we go. We are live. What's good, everybody? Red Squirrel. Oi, oi. How you doing, bro? I don't know what oi, oi means, actually, so you can let me know in the comments. I'm doing well. We actually have an awesome guest tonight. Have you guys ever thought about, say, the Hedron and how you can take your HSI stake and you can either borrow against it, right? You can borrow Hedron against your HSI stake. Or that you can take your HSI stake and you convert it to an NFT and then you can sell it on OpenSea. Well, what I wanted to know, and that is why we have the special guest tonight, how could you go through and come up with a valuation model? How could you go through and come up with a price? Because these NFTs are hack stakes. They just have to be brought back into the protocol. So there's a price that they should sell at, and there's going to be some NFTs that I would expect are selling at a discount. So we have Crypto Sloth that is going to be here tonight, helping us think about this and how we can actually go through and figure out if something's selling at a discount. Wouldn't you like to be able to buy hacks at a discount? So that is what we're going to be doing tonight. Make sure you take a second, press the thumbs up button, press the share button, get more people in here. Press share, then press Twitter. You can tag Crypto Sloth and myself. But without further ado, let's bring in Crypto Sloth. And I want to press cheers. Cheering. You come
What's
on
up, Sam? How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man. Long time no talk.
I know, right? It's been a whole 2 days. Crazy, right?
I definitely enjoyed that conversation the other day.
Dude, that was a great conversation. I feel like we discussed a broad variety of topics. I really appreciated kind of getting your perspective on crypto as a whole, and then getting a little bit into the nitty gritty of some pulse chain stuff. So yeah, that was a really, I think, productive conversation, and I look forward to having more of those. And I'm excited to get into the nitty gritty of HSI stakes today. It's gonna be great.
Yes, this is gonna be really good. I'm just gonna say hi to these guys real quick. MJB,
yeah, go ahead.
MJB, what's good, man? It's good to see you here. Dean DK, let's go. And Patricia Queens, it's awesome seeing you here. Like the logo on your PulseX logo. Hey, I got a question earlier from somebody on the DMs somewhere. I don't remember where it was. Maybe it was on Facebook. Or no, it was on Instagram. And he asked me if I thought there's going to be multiple places. I'm going to pull up the message just to make sure that I understand it correctly. He asked me, where can you stake Pulse? And where can you? Hey, Hex Squid, what's good? Hex Squid in the house, always supporting. I appreciate that, brother. Where can you actually stake Pulse? Yeah, we're going to get into it in a minute.
Well, the native Pulse staking is going to be delegating. So you delegate it to a validator, and that's basically you giving them votes on saying you want them to validate blocks, and they'll give you everybody. Oh yeah, what's up, GSC? Good to see you, man. I hope you're doing well. What was I saying? Oh yeah, it's validating. Sorry. So you don't give it, but you put your Pulse, and each one of them is like a vote, and then you vote for a certain validator, and then a proportion of the rewards they're going to distribute to all the people who voted for their validating pool. If you go to David Feeder's channel, he has a lot of more technical and specifics about that, but that's going to be the baseline staking mechanism for Pulse, and it's not going to be very much. The second way is going to be to provide it as liquidity with some other coin. That'll be another way to earn interest on your Pulse coin, but delegating is the main way.
And when we say not very much, right? So if you look at pairing two together for liquidity, at least on Uniswap, there's a little calculator that kind of gives you, based upon the last 30 days of volume, what your estimated earnings are going to be for that. Is there where you might earn 50 to 100%, depending on how you do your concentration on Uniswap V3? I don't think you're going to earn nearly 50 to 100% with Pulse staking
No.
as a validator.
Based on like some things that I've seen on other chains, it was a while ago. I wouldn't expect anything more than 5% on your Pulse chain. I think that would probably be the cap for delegating. Yeah, yeah. Anything more, I'd be shocked. But about 5% is probably the highest I could see you get with Pulse chain, which isn't like horrible, but it's not going to be the same as like single-sided PLS staking or liquidity providing.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you know of any sites that kind of give us the aggregate of all the projects that are launching on Pulse? Because once you think that there's going to be another protocol that's going to be like, hey, bro, you can stake your Pulse here, and you can earn money this way.
I don't actually. I'm not aware of any site like that. Let me see what DeFi Llama is a good site. DeFi Llama is a great site to kind of see different protocols and how much money is locked up in those protocols. Here, I'll drop it in the chat.
And then I
don't know if you can put links in your public chat, but I'll at least put it in the private chat too. And that's a cool place to look around and see like where people can lock their coins up and get yield in the DeFi space. And then all the stuff that's going to be on Pulse Chain will probably end up in here at some point.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is interesting.
Red Squirrel has an interesting comment there. Unless you delegate to the liquid loans validator, there may be extra incentive. Seems like he might know something that I'm not aware of for the liquid loan stuff. But yeah, that is possible. Validators can offer any kind of incentive they want to get you to not give them your Pulse, but use your Pulse and vote for them. So that is possible. So I'd look out for that. The places I've seen it are like the Mintra network. I don't know if people have heard. There's kind of a niche blockchain, but I've done some like delegating on that site, and it'll probably look similar to that. And then you can also look on the testnet to see like how delegating would work if you're interested in that.
On the other hand, too, that now that we're talking about, say, liquid loans, so to speak, you could think of liquid loans as a way of staking, right? You could kind of like think of it as staking, and you get USDL, but you have to think of USDL as an investment. So you would basically put USDL into the stability pool to create a yield from it. So it's a two-step process, but it would be staking, right? In that way, and you could still earn loan tokens.
Yeah, you could. Well, I don't know. Yeah, you could frame taking out USDL against your Pulse as staking. You could frame it that way. I see that more as a loan. I mean, obviously that's what it's advertised as, but definitely the USDL stability pool is staking, and then the loan token pool, single-sided staking, is definitely a staking mechanism for sure.
Cool, interesting. So the liquid loans kind of like is another thing I wanted to talk about too, but we'll first talk about Hedron. So
let's do it.
What was it about Hedron that kind of like drew you in to be, because you're kind of in the community around Hex and whatnot. You're like the person that everybody references as like, there's a question around Hedron. Well, here, go talk to CryptoSloth. So what was it that you were like, damn, this is super interesting, that this is going to be the thing that I latch onto and completely understand so I can help people with this?
Yeah, it was actually like the second day after I heard about it where like it really clicked in my head. And the thing that got me was the fact that the token distribution model is tied to the share rate. And at that point, I'd already understood that shares get exponentially more difficult to obtain as time goes on. And then they get linearly more difficult to obtain in terms of Hex, and they get exponentially more difficult to obtain as the Hex price goes up. And I understood the implications of that in the future in regards to obtaining T-shares now, because T-shares eventually will not be obtainable for anybody. And even now, T-shares are very difficult to obtain. When you put a token whose distribution is tied to that model, that token also becomes just as scarce as the share, which initially got my attention. I was like, whoa, this is really powerful. And then when I thought about its native value, which is its ability to be exchanged for liquidated stakes, I was like, whoa, okay, so here I have this asset whose value is tied to hex and hex stakes, which are, in my opinion, a superior form of value storage, a superior store of value, the best store of value I've come across of, and its distribution gets exponentially more difficult to obtain as time goes on proportionally to the share rate. I was like, this is incredible. I want to learn more about this and understand this more. And I was already sold at that point.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? So you're talking about making the Hedron shares diminishing in terms of supply over time, because I've heard you mention this before. When I talk to other people who are not as bullish about Hedron, they seem to think that there's an abundant amount of supply, and they're not connecting with that, as well as like the Hedron supply is pegged to the B share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not how. Have you thought about how that could potentially? There's no way to arb that, right? That you can think of.
There would be if there are liquidations going on. You could
Can
get.
you talk about that in more in depth, and also explain the decreasing in supply? Because a lot of people, I don't think, understand the decrease in supply.
Yeah,
when other people in the community talk about it, they think that there's an abundance amount of supply.
Yeah, one second.
Take your time. Take your time. You pull it up. I'm going to just say hi to the chat real quick, because otherwise I get distracted and I'll read this.
Yeah, go ahead. You talk to the chat for a second, but I'm ready to go whenever.
Fiat staking for Pulse. Damien O'Brien. Good. Thank you. This is why it's awesome having you guys here, because we learned from this. And Hexteenality is going to feature this on the Pulse Tube tomorrow. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sorry. So what was your question exactly?
Talk about the supply, right? Because some people that I talk to are like, "Oh, there's such an abundant supply; it's just going to have selling pressure." But then, when you understand the intimate details, you realize that it's actually a diminishing amount of supply. Can you talk us through that, please?
Yes. So, yes, the token is tied to B shares, but B shares and T shares are essentially just different quantifications of the same thing. 1 billion shares or 1 trillion shares. They're just the same thing. So even though T shares are really hard to obtain, B shares also get just as difficult to obtain because they're fundamentally the same thing. It's just that a billion shares is more obtainable to the average person than a T share is, just because of where the system is. So that scarcity model is still in place, even in the context of a B share. In terms of the ARB opportunity that you were questioning about, that comes in with the liquidation market. So say there's a stake that's been liquidated, and you are able to bid for that stake and win the stake for less than it would cost to make the stake today in terms of dollar value, then there's some ARB there, because you can now get that stake cheaper by burning that Hedron, and then you get that amount of B shares back from that HSI stake that's been liquidated. Now, people do seem to think that Hedron supply is a lot, and to a degree that they are right, because a lot of supply was released at the very beginning, both because of whales in the system who have a ton of T shares, and the launch bonus that was given to anybody who claimed it for these first 100 days, which is coming to an end in about 2 weeks, more or less. In my opinion, so you can look at it in terms of what people have already obtained and how much supply that's being released. But I also think it's important to taper that against what new entrants into the system are going to have. And I have personal experience with this with my onboards, where they're fighting for a couple hundred B shares. Like, it costs $500 in this 80% dip to get 1 T share. Well, actually, more than $500, but $500 is around the price to get 1 T share if you max out the longer pays better bonus.
15 years.
15 years or 10 years, 10 years if you don't want to do it for 15 years.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So it's a little easier, but that's tough. Like you think, like most people in America don't have $1,000 of an emergency fund or in savings. So to take $15, $500 and punt it out for 10 years is almost inconceivable for most people. And so everybody who is getting any kind of amount of shares are so much fewer than even one T share, and probably not for 10 years, just because maybe they won't be able to afford it. And if you look at that, how much Hedron are they getting? Basically dust, at least at this price. So the people who have that basically what appears to be an infinite tap where they can just release the valve and Hedron just gets printed forever, those people are finite. Nobody like that is ever going to exist in the system unless they bring with them major capital. And you also, I think, have to factor the time aspect of this. These people don't get to mint an absorbent amount of Hedron unless they wait. So the reason why so much of the supply was released on day 1 through 10, or the original couple weeks, is because people had a backstop of Hedron accumulated for 2 years that they could mint from. Now, this is something that actually Alex has spoken about previously before in some Telegram chats that I'm in. And I think he's even said it publicly on Twitter. But this was a kind of a bait and switch or kind of a bait to differentiate whales who believe in the system and want to protect the price and whales that don't. So you give them a whole bunch of Hedron right up front, and the ones that don't believe it cash out immediately. But they're not going to be able to do that again. They have to wait at least 2 years to get that same amount of sell pressure that they got on day 1. And so what that did is redistribute a lot of those tokens at the very beginning that would have gone to these singular individuals and distribute it to people like me, who are smaller players who have now been able to increase their Hedron position relative to the entire system earlier than they would have if they didn't, say, get that initial 2 years of coins right off the bat. And I talked a lot and droned a little bit, but did that answer?
That was interesting. So one thing you didn't mention, which I thought about as you were describing the supply, and I thought it was also fascinating, you did the 2 years, right? So the first 2 years, I completely forgot about that. The first 2 years, if you had been staked during that time, and the only people who were staked during that time, as you were mentioning, is like people who are whales at this point, basically, or have a lot more money than we do in the market, right? So they're going to just, and it's those people who are also saying that they don't seem to think that Hedron has a ton of value, right? At least that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody.
That's a sentiment that's out there.
Seems
it's
like
probably
that.
becoming more prominent.
Okay, so which is probably a good thing to acquire.
Yeah.
The Hedron. Okay. Now another thing is the bonus.
Go ahead.
The bonus, right? Because those bonus stakes, right? Over the, you said 10 years, right? Somebody buy a T-shirt, it's $500-$600, right? And that's if you max out 10 years, right? So if you think about it, there's a bunch of people who have 10x, right? On their Hedron. There's people 9x's, 8x's, 7x's. I'll let you explain that briefly so people don't understand it, but then talk about it, because those are going to drop out of the system. So that multiplier effect only is a short duration. Like some of the people who did that had 2.5 year stake that's coming due in 6 months at a 10x multiplier. So that's gone. Like you won't ever get that again. So that's going to be decreasing the supply over time that comes onto the market.
Correct.
And so that's good. That's going to be interesting. So when you look at the B share, because I'm trying to think about that to see if there's a way to measure that. And the only way you can do that is with the defaults for liquidations, correct? That you can think of?
Sorry, in regards
for an arbitrage?
Yeah. That at least natively within the system, yeah.
Do you think? But there's no. That was like, I wonder if that would help increase like the correlation with those two in some fashion, right?
Well, it would, theoretically, because if you can get these stakes cheaper off the liquidation market, versus on the normal market, then it would make sense to burn that Hedron to get those liquidated stakes versus selling your Hedron and then buy for Hex and then making the stake, if that's possible.
Do you have any data on how many people are actually utilizing the Hedron protocol?
There are some stats in the Hedron Telegram chat. I'll see if I can. Yeah, they have these Hedron daily statistics that get printed, not printed, but get made up every day, and they'll tell you how many HSIs have been created, how many total HSIs have been created. So I'm actually looking at one right now, and as of the 20th of May, it looks like 7,379 HSI stakes were created at that point in time.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's actually a little higher than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. No, people are using the system, and what you'll notice is most of the critics on Hedron supply, what I've noticed is that a lot of them say this. They say the HSI is a great innovation. It's a great service or utility given to the Hex community. Well, in my opinion, if you've gotten somebody to use the HSI system, then they're within the Hedron system already. Like they're already a user. Anyways, they are you've gotten them on board, and if it's a utility that's useful for all hex stakers and people use it as a onboarding tool and people know about it from the beginning, that increases the sample size of people using it or increases the population of people using it. And if advances, if you could put a percentage on the number of people or the number of wallets or the number of stakes that use the advanced system, then simply by that being a good technological innovation, that percentage is going to be a part of a greater number already. If that made any sense.
Yes. Okay. So because the adoption is increasing,
yep.
Right?
Adoption, people are promoting its adoption independent of what they think of the token. Which in turns gives the token the opportunity to do the things that it's designed to do because people are using its system.
What in your mind, right? Because what is the reason to hold Hedron?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I'm like I understand the liquidation, right? If I can get a discount on X and do it in a way that I think is fun or interesting to do, like a liquidation or purchasing an NFT at a discount, yeah, that'd be something I would do just because I think it would be fun to do to get a deal, right? So what are your thoughts on the reasoning behind holding Hedron? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to necessarily appreciate relatively quick.
Yeah, that would be the general perception. I kind of have a different opinion on that. I think it's price appreciation comes once a certain threshold is reached. So the Hex system will the Hex system will continue to do what it does. It will inflate, and the share rate will constantly go up. And then a certain threshold will be reached where the token price of the Hedron will just naturally correlate with that. I can't.
Can you explain? If you can try to explain that a little. What threshold needs to be reached in terms of system size, like number of users, because then it just forces adoption, or because the price in USD to get a B share is so ridiculously high.
Yeah, it'll probably be that the price is so ridiculously high to get a B share. And then, of course, this is dependent on stakes being on the liquidation market to be able to burn Hedron away from the system. So people are going on the system to buy it for their premiums, because you need to pay a premium on top of your principal in order to make your 30-day payments. So people will naturally have to buy Hedron off the open market when they take advances. And then when the liquidation market happens, you may be able to go on the market, grab a bunch of Hedron and get a stake cheaper. Or people who can mint a bunch of Hedron, the whales, will see that, oh, I can just burn this Hedron that I get to get another stake instead of selling it on the market, which a lot of them, the people who seem to be selling Hedron, the whales, seem to be buying Hex. So if they could just directly burn it instead of hurting the price chart of a coin that they're receiving a large proportion of the share for, and then burning it, so that helps the price, because you can no longer sell those coins, that seems to be a more logical route to take.
Wow, that's okay. That's interesting. So I forgot about that. I read through their white paper. So when somebody does an advance on a 15-year thing, depending on if they have a multiple for their bonus period, or other people getting in who are going to watch this after this comes out over the next 6 months or something, are not going to have the option for that, and they're going to just get one, right? So at that point, if somebody takes an advance on their 15-year, they can pull X amount of Hedron out. Now, say if they were to sell that, then they have to pay that back. When it gets paid back, it all gets burnt. Yes, you could go through and repeat that cycle again. But that's an interesting dynamic, because also the liquidations are going to be purchased as well. So that's going to be reducing the supply. Well, it's not really going to, it's kind of going to maintain the supply, right? Because you're going to have liquidations that are going to be purchased with Hedron, and that's going to be burnt.
Yeah, that Hedron is burnt. Yeah.
But in order to have a liquidation to start with, they would have had already taken an advance. So,
so yeah, here we'll just go through an example on why you would be able to burn. Pretty much what happens is more Hedron will always be burned than what was advanceable.
Really?
Just because of because of how cheap the token is, and how valuable just on the Hedron that's advanceable.
You cut out for like 3 or 4 seconds. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I was saying the Hedron that gets burnt is going to be more than the Hedron that was advanced on, just naturally, because there's going to be an underlying dollar value to the stake in Hex terms. So let's take this example, a really simple example. 1 T share for 15 advance of 5,555,000 Hedron. Now today that's at most, but 1 T share costs about 7,000 Hex to obtain. So what's about 7,000 Hex for the max stake length is how much it takes to get that T share. And 7,000 Hex now, let me see, I'll pull it up, I'll get the exact number.
Okay, while you're pulling that up, so what CryptoSloth is going to get to, I believe, which I think is awesome. This is why I wanted you on here, to get these little bits of information. If you have a HSI, you go through, you take your Hex, and you stake this on the Hedron. I think it's Hedron.pro, right? Hedron.pro. And you do an advance, right? So you pull all your future earnings of Hedron to today's dollars. And then at 90, even if it was just 90 days from today, they didn't make any payments, that T-share price in USD in 90 days is going to be higher than it is today for the equivalent amount of Hex, assuming that, Hex price could come down, so the USD price could actually come down on that, right? But if you play it out further enough in the future, it's not always going to be down. Sometimes it's going to be up, which would make it more costly. And is that why there's going to be an additional burn of Hedron to pay them off?
Yeah, and here I have the exact numbers right here.
Yep, pull them up.
Yeah, so as of right now, a max stake length for 1 T share would get you 5,555,000 Hex, which is about $4 right now. At the exact current price.
Say it again. So a max what?
A 1 T share for 5,555 days, you would be able to advance 5,555,000 Hedron, which is $4 right now. And if you defaulted on that and your stake went up for auction, the underlying hex that it took to make that is 7,000, which is 551 US dollars. So because you're getting the stake and the underlying hex that's associated with it, what you're really doing is you're bidding on that $551, not the $4. So the amount of Hedron that you would burn to make it one for one, it'd be exactly the same. If it was $551, would be 640 million Hedron. So basically, like you're near like 10xing or 11xing the amount of Hedron that was burnt versus the amount of Hedron that was advanced upon.
So okay, so
because you're getting the hex stake, which is the underlying hex as well. Plus, you know, you also have to take into account the days served.
Oh, yes, that's fascinating. Okay, so let's. I'm gonna paraphrase this just to make sure that I'm understanding, and hopefully it's valuable to you guys in the comments. I saw Bob in there, so what's good, Bob? And Red Squirrel, and the Mayo Junkie, and Crypto Bigfoot, and Hexographer, and Chad. What's up, everybody? How you guys doing? Damien, thanks for the support as well. Okay, so let me refocus here. We have the HSI stake you take an advance on for 1 T share, max length, so 15 years, 5555, right? You get how many Hedron?
5,555,000.
Okay, cool. So you get the 5555, right, of Hedron for that for 1 T share. Cool, interesting. Now, what the equivalent collateral behind that is what do you say, it was 7,000 and change for hex shares?
Yeah, 7,000, about 7,000 hex, 7,100 hex, something around there.
Okay, so 7,000. What does that come out to be when you do this? So 7,100 hex times 8 cents is $5,068. $5,068, and you are basically taking a loan for $4. So you take a loan against your $568 for $4. Now, when that comes to that person not paying, right? They forgot about it, they didn't do it, they didn't know how to do it, they lost their Z phrase, whatever. You're going to have a $4 loan that actually sells for $8, but no, it's going to sell way more than $4. Maybe $565 if it's a $568 value. I don't know what it will sell for, but that's good. I'm glad you brought that point up because I had not seen that. That's a super valuable insight that 99.9% of people do not understand. That's fascinating. Okay, so go ahead.
And bring up this comment from Bob Lagai.
Let me pull it up. Yes. Which one?
Although the upcoming option, yeah. So this is true. The auctions that are up for liquidation, and this is something that's been going around in the community. People have been saying that they're basically people who have done this on purpose in order to get things going, and that is true. This was something that was talked about very early in the Telegram groups, that some people would be taking advances on their HSIs on day one for like smaller stakes, and then allowing those to default to get the auction system going so that people could see how it's used. So I just want to say like, yes, all of that is true and is none of that's like hidden. Like the community has known about this for a while, and in my opinion, that's actually really bullish because there are people within the system who think so highly of it, they're willing to give away some of their stakes to show other people how it works and to kind of do like a proof of concept kind of a proof of, to be the people to sacrifice a little bit of their stack to like prove the concept that these liquidations work and show people how they work in terms of like the UI and everything.
So now that we've talked about this is hustle headquarters.
I also thought of that threshold, like what the threshold point is for the Hedron system, like when it starts to ratchet up. I remember what it is now. If you want me just, it's that threshold is hit whenever the percentage of the Hedron borrowable reaches, whenever the dollar value of the Hedron that you're able to advance, that percentage of the total value of your stake is big enough to motivate people to take advances on. So if you could put if you can make $1,000 stake, if you can make $1,000 stake and immediately advance 20% or 200 on that, is it $300 that you're willing to take that advance on? 400, 500? Like when the price of Hedron reaches the point where you can say take out 20% of the value you put in to your stake, there's going to be a certain percentage where people are enticed enough enticed enough to go start taking those advances out. That's the point.
Explain that for people who are listening, what you mean by that. Like the tipping point, so to speak, where it really makes sense, because this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Why would people use the advanced feature? I'm going to say when and if, right? Hedron gets up to a certain value. If somebody did the same, they did one T-share, they staked that for 5,555 days, and that the advance that they're able to take against that is 5,555 Hedron. That value in USD terms is about $4, you said, right? Okay, that is a tiny little fraction of what it costs to get one T-share. Yep. If at some point that gap closes a little bit, it squeezes, right? And that $4, because Hedron could go up in value, if that $4 comes up to say $300 worth, so now, same example, one T-share at 5,555 is, who knows what the price would be on that example there, right? If it was the same right now, everything held constant, right? That'd be $568 roughly. $568, but you could borrow 300 against it, then it makes sense. Question: Do you think that because of what a lot of people believe to be Hex is an amazing store of value, and the way that it is designed, that it is designed in such a way so it almost appears that it's easier to increase in value, right? What a lot of people believe, right? So, if that is the case, do you think that could ever get close enough to being to 20% if Hex is designed in such a way to shoot up faster than Hedron could? That, like, so say Hedron gets up to 4% of your USD value of the Hex that you staked in for a T-share, right? So $568. If Hedron got up to say 10% of that, which is $56, at that point there's probably something happening with Hex. You would think, I don't know, right? But you would think that something's happening with Hex to have Hedron jump up that much. That Hex would outpace that. So now one T-share is now $1,050 or something like that. So it actually drops that back down. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, here's something to think about. That's actually, it just came to my mind right now as you were talking. That kind of helps bring those two prices of the two tokens and makes it more feasible for that certain threshold percentage to be hit. It takes less Hex to get more advanceable Hedron. So, yeah, and I'll explain that. So because of the longer pays better bonus, if you stake your Hex for a longer period of time, you get more shares for less Hex. So that dollar value of Hex actually is lower, and you get more T-shares or more shares because of that. And because your mintable Hedron is based on the number of B shares you have, you can actually get more. Your amount of advanceable Hedron is a function of two things: the amount of shares that you have and the number of days you have on that stake. So the more days you have, the longer the stake is, the more advanceable Hedron you get. The more shares you have, the more advanceable Hedron you get. But you can get both of those factors by staking less Hex for longer. So we'll do an example. It costs about 20,000 Hex to do one T-share for 1 day. But it only costs 7,000 Hex to get one T-share for 5,555 days. So which of the two stakes has more advanceable Hedron? They both have one T-share, right? It's the second one. But the first stake with the 20,000 Hex has a greater dollar value attached to it to obtain that stake. So now that percentage is easier to obtain because there's less Hex going out for longer, which gets you more Hedron advanceable. So you get less hex, which is going to be the denominator number of this ratio that we're creating. The bottom number is getting smaller and the top number is getting bigger. So it's easier for a larger percentage to be hit. Did that make sense?
Yeah, the last part I got lost on. Okay, so the bottom, the you have a makes sense in terms of if you have a hex stake, you have bigger pays better and longer pays better, and the duration, the length of your T share is going to also be a determinant factor in the price of how much you pay for your T share. Mm-hmm. So, as you mentioned, one T share and one for 1 day is going to get you no Hedron, right? But one T share for 15 years is going to get you a lot more because it has 15 years. There's also going to be a big price differential between if you have one T share for 1 day or one T share for 15 years. And then you were mentioning the ratio of this, and that is where I got lost.
Okay. So when we're talking about this percentage, what that formula is the dollar value of Hedron over the dollar value of Hedron advanceable over the dollar value of hex to make the stake.
Okay, gotcha.
Now you can split those two, the numerator, the denominator, into a different function, which is the number of Hedron advanceable times the price over the number of hex times the price of hex, correct? Okay.
Yep.
So the way the system is set up, you can decrease the denominator number, the number of hex staked, the number of hex to make the stake. As you decrease that number, which in terms of a ratio increases the final value, and then when you do that, when you decrease that ratio, that number of hex staked, by using the longer pays better bonus, you are increasing the numerator number, the number of Hedron advanceable. So by utilizing the system, the hex system as it's supposed to be used, by staking less hex for longer to get more T shares in more advanceable days, you're increasing the number of Hedron that you're able to advance upon. So that naturally brings that percentage that we're trying to hit, that threshold, it makes it easier to hit because the denominator is getting smaller and the numerator is getting larger.
Mm. Okay, now I got you. You. Okay, so
that's one way it would maybe be easier to hit that percentage threshold that we're talking about.
Do you see the hex ecosystem? Because that would assume that like the length of stakes continues to get longer, right, for that to happen, right? Which seems to be the case as it has been. Do you see that continuing to be the case?
Yeah, I do.
And do you see the concentration of hex increasing in terms of like there's say X number of whales in the system right now, and they just continue to increase their system, their position in the hex ecosystem to take up more and more of the system themselves and kind of squeeze out everybody else?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a mix. I think we have some whales that like understand the system and want to maintain and or add to their position relative to everybody else. And I think we have some whales who probably just don't really care. They want to exit in terms of dollars. And so there'll probably be more net sellers. So it'll be kind of like a push and pull between those two different types of whales for a while.
Okay, yeah. Interesting.
But I think in terms of retail, people like you and me, because the narrative of Hex, all of us collectively are understanding how to utilize and maximize the system as efficiently as possible. I think the new users who are going to be coming in and onboarding are going to tend towards longer stakes because that's the easiest way for them to get as big of a position in the system as possible.
Interesting. Yeah. And so where do you see that, like, because to getting to that threshold where it kind of like pulls the price up of Hedron, right? Because that's what we're kind of talking about, or the baseline of what we're talking about. How do you see that actually being able to get hit?
Sorry, repeat that question again.
So like we want to know how, at what point, or how do you see that even getting hit? Like the to pull up the price of Hedron to make that so that it is 20% of the value, right?
Okay, gotcha. In my mind, how do I see that happening? So the easiest way to conceive of it is, well, no, that would be circular. I was going to say the auctions going off, but the auctions going off are dependent on this threshold being hit to a degree. I think I have to think this through more, and that's what I've been thinking about a little bit more, because the path to that isn't actually plainly obvious to me. The distribution model of the system, at least intuitively, like, is enough to eventually get us there. And then it just, how long does it take people to understand the value of the system? How long does it take for our community to realize the value of the system, and that we all want these auctions and these advances to take place? Because in my opinion, they provide nothing but value to everybody. No matter
Talk,
your size, your bag size.
so
Mhm.
talk about how, the right, because I don't necessarily see for myself at this moment in time like borrowing against where that the underlying that I have to pay back, or like the amount that I have to pay back, is fluctuating. That doesn't seem super appealing to my risk like tolerance at this moment, right? Like, it just doesn't seem like it would be great if my house value doubles in price, that my debt doubles in price. Like, I just don't like that idea personally. So who is going to be that person, like that profile, who's going to take an advance? Because I think that overall through the whole system, it at least appears this way, right? If there's several liquidations potentially happening, or several people taking advances, and we know that probably most, if not all of those, are from people who are just donating basically to the system to show people how it works, right? But also, if you go to OpenSea, I think the last time I checked, there was 500 NFTs over there. So the value prop of the Hedron piece may go more towards the NFT thing, being able to do that, then going to the advance. So I want to know who is kind of like the profile of person, or what's the value prop of being able to go through and borrow against doing the advance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say people like me, people who are pretty deep into DeFi. I think that's the most obvious type of person who is going to be interested in these advances, most simply because the returns are so high that it can offset the price fluctuations sufficiently where you can continue to pay off those advances. In TradFi, you might, like real estate and stuff, you might not be able to pay it off quick enough, like the price appreciation, and like for retail, not retail, for real estate, like the illiquidity of your properties, as well as the APY you would receive from using them as like rental properties or whatever, probably wouldn't necessarily outpace any kind of price fluctuations in Hedron. But of course, that's true if the price goes up. But if the price also goes down, like say you borrow at a top where everything's like super hyper inflated, then like you get less debt too. So it's like it's a double-edged sword. It's really great in one direction, really bad in another direction. But in DeFi, the yields are so high, the APRs are so high.
Can you walk us through some of the details of how somebody could utilize their advance to, basically inject steroids into their returns, into their yield, right? Because borrowing is a way to actually amplify, your returns.
Let me I'll pull up my slides. Hold on.
Cool. And if you want to share that into the private thing, I can pull it up here so that everybody can see, or I can pull up like a browser thing where you're pulling that up and just say hi.
Just to everybody. I talk a lot about this stuff on my channel. So if you want more in-depth stuff about Hedron advances, go look at my different videos.
Can you grab your channel too and put it into the chat, and I'll share it?
Yep.
Or you can just share it in the chat.
I don't know if I can post links in your chat. I think you have to be like moderator or the owner.
Post it in the private and I'll put it in there.
Sounds good.
Blue Bum. Well, Blue Bum's here. What's good, man? How you doing? It's great to see you.
Hey, Blue Bum.
How much Hedron do you think that first stake up for auction will go for? Awesome question. What do you think?
It's like the one that's like 700 B shares, something like that.
With Jersey, the one.
Sorry, you cut out there. I didn't catch that.
Oh, how much do you think the one that will sell for that's like $500?
That's like $500. How much do you think it will
Sell for?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm learning and observing this system just like everybody else. I'll take the easy out. The same dollar value that it's worth on the market now. $500 worth of $500 worth of Hedron. That's how much it'll go for. unless somebody just wants to bid an absorbent amount just to show that people bid an absorbent amount of Hedron. That's the only case where I don't. But like, yeah, I don't see people overpaying for it necessarily. But $500 of Hedron is a lot of Hedron. It's about it's like 600 billion. 600 million, sorry, not billion. Okay, let me.
That's a lot. Okay, you got those slides because this is going to be interesting to see what this actually looks like. We're going to take a look at how you could use an HSI stake with your advance to actually increase your yield. Well,
not necessarily increase your yield, but like get a liquidity position, liquidity pool, liquidity providing position.
Okay, let's take a look. If you share that in the private, I can pull it up, or you can't do that.
I've shared my screen, so I think you just have to pull it up. If you see it on the bottom.
Oh, okay, cool. And Bluebum, it's worth $500, but you can get that stakes for $130 worth of hex. Does that make sense to you? So it's worth $500, but you could get that stake for $130 worth of hex. So why is it $500 and you can get it for $130? That's not sure.
I don't know. I have to go look at it specifically. I'm not 100% sure what he means.
Okay, let's get into your slides. We'll come back to that, Bluebum.
Yeah. Oh, is that my screen?
Oh, this is what I had shared.
That's right.
There we go.
Okay, so this is actually, I think I shared this with you a long time ago, maybe the first time we met on GRC's channel, if you remember.
Yes, it was like 2 months ago. Yes.
Yeah, it feels like longer than that, but yeah, it was about 2 months ago. But yeah, so this is how you would use your HSIs to take out a liquidity pool position. It's pretty simple. You just advance on your Hedron from your HSI stake, and then you take that Hedron and you sell it into whatever pairs that you want to LP on. And one option is one of the pairs can be a Hedron pair. So you could, if push ever came to shove and you needed some Hedron because the price has gone so much, you can remove a percentage of your position and start paying it off that way. Or what you could do is like take an advance on your Ethereum HSI, your Pulse Chain HSI, and then you have eHedron, pHedron. You bridge over the eHedron, put those two in a pair, and now you're just liquidity providing on those two pairs. And then that's kind of like a fail safe for like if price gets too far away from you, but the price moves proportionally to each other in the higher direction, then you would still have enough Hedron to on both chains to pay your advances off, to pay off your premium, your payments. But yeah, you provide.
I wonder how much volume there would be in like a wrapped Hedron. And I don't know.
Volume would be interesting, and it'd also be interesting to see if it gets incentivized, because the Pulse X holder, depending on how popular Hedron gets within the Hex system, the majority of PLSX holders are hexagons. So maybe they would at some point, if they feel these kind of strategies are worth it, to start incentivizing pools that are beneficial for like leverage liquidity providing for Hedron. It's a possibility. It's just speculation, but like, the probability of that is higher than just some other random pairs because this system builds on top of the Hex system. I think this is what Bluebum says, because you're buying shares, and if it's a 5-5-5-5, you get 3 times. Oh, okay, I see what he's saying. So like the stake is worth $500, but if you max out the longer pays better bonus, it's only $130. So it's like, would somebody pay $130 because you can get the same number of shares by staking out longer, or would they pay $500 because that's how much that stake is worth in terms of Hex?
Well, the $500 stake that's up for liquidation is not 15 years, correct?
I don't think so. I haven't looked at that one specifically, but maybe we can pull it up after I finish with these slides.
Yes. Okay,
just to take a look.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so you earn your fees and your incentivization token, and then you take that income and you pay off your advance. And then, yeah. So let's say you do this, but you don't earn enough yield to pay off your advance. This is kind of like the worst case scenario because now your HSI is up for liquidation. Then you just take your second HSI, your native stakes that you can mint from, or a large bag of Hedron that you bought now while the price is really low, and you use that to pay off to mint your Hedron or the Hedron that you bought off the market now, and then you pay off your HSI that way. So now it's kind of your fail safe, where if you don't make enough yield, you can at least still keep your HSI and your hex stake, which is ultimately what you want. So this is how you could use the advanced feature of Hedron as a leveraging tool to get an income generating asset to pay off your debt, which fundamentally is like what you do in the TradFi in traditional finance anyways, like real estate. Like you'll take out a mortgage or whatever to buy a property, or you take out some kind of loan from the bank to buy a property, use the income from that to pay off the loan, and then now you're left with a property that's generating you income. Or you take a business loan. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish.
Or you just take a business loan, build a business that generates income, pay off your loan, and now you have an income generating asset, which is your business. Like this is the same concept, just in DeFi.
I think that they're personally, so I'm seeing this, and this is like, because I'm adverse to having variable debt, right? Like a debt that can increase in value does not seem like something I would like to use personally. But what you're describing here, in my opinion, could be done with less risk and do the same exact type of thing by utilizing fiat debt. Mm-hmm. Fiat debt, and you don't have variable debt. You don't have debt that increases in value. If Hedron goes up in price, you could go through and take out a $5,000.
Let me stop sharing.
Yeah.
And I'll keep talking. I'll pull something else that I've already showed you up. But
okay, so Hedron debt, from my point of view, has volatility risk, right? Which means that, like what I mentioned earlier, if I had Hedron style debt on this house and the house doubles in value, I've had this house triple in value basically in the last 5 years. So bought it super cheap, it's tripled in value. Now, if I had Hedron type debt on the house, then the debt would also triple in value in that example. That just doesn't seem super appealing to me. But you can leverage fiat into crypto in the other way, where you don't have to have that volatility risk there. You can get rid of the volatility risk and just put that all into. You can take, say a $5,000 personal loan, or I'm not saying anybody should do any of these things we're talking about. These are just brainstorming here for education, right? Take the $5,000 personal loan, $50,000 personal loan, put that into crypto to earn a yield that is higher than 5%, 10%, whatever you're paying in fiat. You can earn more than that in crypto and use that to pay it off. You set up a reserve for 6 months, you set up a reserve for 12 months, whatever your prerogative is. And then when it gets closer to that 6 month mark, you pull some out, whether you're putting it into a hex stake or you're putting it into LP or some combination of the two. It just seems to have like a lower risk profile.
Oh, here's something I think you would like to hear about the HSI advances. You can pay off as much as you want off the front end. So like you have to take an advance on all the days that you haven't minted, like just by default, you can't choose. But what you can do is take half of that and pay it up front. And then say you have a 10-year stake and then you advance on it. So you advance against the whole 10 years, sorry, not 10 days, 10-year stake. If you take half of the Hedron and you pay it off immediately, then you don't have to make a payment till year 5. It's kind of similar to what you were saying with you have your reserves that auto pay to your loan. This way you just pay it up front, and then now you have a loan that you don't have to make a single payment for half the time. Until like 5 years for like a 10-year stake, for example.
Interesting. Oh yeah. No, that's
So that gives you that you can lock in that buffer. Of course, that's less money for you to play around with, but just the same with you. Like you took 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, you can't play around with that money because that's your buffer to give you the time to generate the income to be able to pay it off. So you do have a similar option with these. But I pulled up another set of slides if you want to pull that up.
Yeah, because I still want to see like the idea behind the appreciation of Hedron in terms of price.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll run through this quickly, and I've showed you this too. I showed when I came on with you in Hexorca, my risk reward calculator, and you know, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like taking out debt in an asset that fluctuates in price. One, it's essentially a short position because you're selling the asset, kind of hoping it to go down, rebuy it for cheaper, and then now the difference is your profit. But also like, the idea of the asset just skyrocketing away from you in price and now you're liquidated and there's nothing you can do about it, I think definitely is a more riskier type of debt to take on. My perspective on these kinds of systems is that I want to understand all the different options of debt that I have within the assets that I own. And then when I understand the parameters by which they operate, I can apply those parameters to whatever situation happens to come my way. So there might not always be the right situation to take out this kind of debt, but I want to intimately understand the risks and rewards of taking out this kind of debt so that if an opportunity ever presents itself, I'm ready to go and I don't have to spend extra time thinking about it, which is why I like to think deeply kind of about the HSI advances, because I think it could be a very valuable form of debt if used correctly and the proper risks are calculated for, which is why I came up with this calculator. But essentially, and just to go quickly, it just calculates all the relevant numbers for the HSI loan, tracks APYs for 3 different opportunities, and then it calculates how long it would take, given that APY stays constant, to pay off that debt as within a matrix of fluctuating Hedron price and the fluctuating LP price. So yeah, you put in your variables. Hedron price, the number of B shares your stakes is, the global hex APY because your payments are a function of this number, and then the number of days you can take an advance on. And then it'll calculate all the HSI parameters that Hedron.pro would calculate for you. And then you put in your total APRs that you would get from whatever LP opportunity you're looking for. And this can go for even TradFi stuff if you know the APR for that. And then your daily APR is what the other numbers calculate. And then you get this big matrix right here, where for each opportunity, you can see how many days it would pay off if, say, the LP price stayed the same, your liquidity pool position stayed the same, and the Hedron price stayed the same. And for PLSX, this one, it's 40% APR. You would be able to make a payment every 6 days. Now let's see that bad scenario where Hedron 10x's in price, and let's just say the LP position stays the same. Then it would take 51 days to pay off that loan. So you know that this is not a sustainable state to be in. But the Hedron price could 5x, and you could still make payments every 30 days with a 4-day buffer. Now, depending on what pools you are liquidity providing for, it's a reasonable assumption that the Hedron price and the liquidity position are going to be correlated to some degree, especially if you're pairing it with things like Hex, or even if you're pairing it with like Hedron versus Hedron. So if the Hedron price is going up, typically, from a probabilistic standpoint, your LP position will probably be going up. So if the Hedron price 10x's, your liquidity pool position only needs to 2x, and you're still in the clear. You have 26 days. And then you also get the reverse of that. If the Hedron price goes down, which is what you want, and then your LP price goes down, you can see how many days it'll take to pay off. So you can know ahead of time.
I just don't see like I love the work and I love the detail in here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't know. I don't see people who understand volatility risk being a great life thing. Like, I don't know how many people are actually going to use this piece of it. Like, is there a data point of that tells you the total amount of advances there has been? I know you said there's been 7,000 plus HSIs, which I thought was fascinating because that's more than I was expecting. And then, do you know of how many loans there has been taken? Or
how many loans? I don't know, but we can see at least how many have not defaulted, but haven't made a payment in at least 30 days. Because I think Alex updated the UI, the front end, for the Hedron DApp. And you can see how many HSIs are like in the pipeline for potentially being liquidated. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yep. And when you go to share again, if you press Shift S, it's a little bit faster way to like share it when you get to that point to pull it up.
Okay.
Say hi to Dario Lopez. Thanks for everybody being here. I'm curious when we get into NFTs, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, because I think the NFT utility of Hedron is far more appealing. If you, I'm going to describe the debt in terms of the volatility of it while you're pulling that up. If you use collateral that is volatile, like any assets that's not a stable coin, assuming you don't have UST or assuming you have something that actually holds peg, if you use any crypto asset that is volatile, then you use a protocol like fiat or Aave, and you borrow another volatile asset against that. You can run into a scenario where your loan goes up in value and your debt goes down in value, and you're effed, right? So that type of thing happens to people, not often, right? But anybody who does that scenario, it can happen way more often than people realize on that kind of thing. So were you able to pull that up in terms of the number of loans?
It's loading right now. Okay. We can keep talking, and whenever it finishes loading, I'll pull it up.
Okay, so let's switch directions, and then we can jump back into that in a second when appropriate. Let's talk about the NFT, right? So somebody does an HSI stake. When they do an HSI stake, they are able to do something and make it into an NFT and then sell it on OpenSea. That seems to be a higher utility feature for users of, because first of all, that like Susie Orman, Dave, whatever his name is, everybody says debt's bad, right? I love debt, right? But in a like in the house, right? Like somebody else pays my shit off. Like I'm because this is a rental house for everybody listening, right? I love debt that other people pay off for me. That's fantastic, right? I don't like risky debt where the house comes down and then I could be liquidated on the house, even though I'm underwater and still paying my bills, kind of thing. But when you look at the NFT thing, that allows people to still get out of their position and do the maxi play. Because
say that one more time.
So with the NFT, you're effectively doing what maxi is, and I don't think that's going to be priced in appropriately. Right? So you know how maxi has they have about 5 different features, right? The fees are going to be less on maxi because they're bundling them together for one end stake versus 6,000 end stakes. You have the Hedron multiplier with maxi, where you have the max length with the hex stake, you have the max multiplier with the hex stake, and you get the liquidity premium, right? Because if you have something that is not tradable and then you make that thing tradable, it's going to sell at a premium to the thing that is not tradable. That's just like how it fucking works. And if it doesn't, there's an opportunity there. So you're taking these hex stakes that are not tradable, and by adding that NFT to them, you're adding liquidity to that, because these things are not tradable. And now once you convert them to an NFT, they are going to be tradable. So you're still going to get hex. You're not just getting max length or max bonus in terms of like what you're getting, but you can get Hedron on there as well. So you can get hex and Hedron. And I'm not sure if both of these are being factored into the price on these. And what are your thoughts on the pricing of, because this is what I really wanted to talk to you about. I was fascinated. The other stuff's fascinating too, and I wanted to clearly we were having a great conversation around that. But I wanted to get your thoughts on actually pricing out an NFT. How do we price out an NFT? Like, I'll pull up Open Marketplace when you talk about this, because I want to know OpenSea. Here we go. I'll share this. 551 HSI stakes on OpenSea. Okay, so if I scroll down here, we got this sucker, right? It says 0.28 T shares, 70. I think this is 70 days. Let's click on it and see what it says. 70 of 300. Okay, so it's serving 369 days, and it's served 70 so far, and it is selling for I have no idea. Oh, here it is. $2,000. All right, $2,000. One ETH. How do I know? Can you help walk me through this mentally, like to go get this? Hey, QT Crypto, and how you doing? Can you help me walk me through this and how to think about the pricing of this? Please?
Yeah, scroll to the left for me.
Yes.
To like where all the properties are.
Let me make this bigger. Oh, there's no scroll.
Yeah.
There's no
scroll down.
Oh,
yeah, so go to stats. Let me see what the stats say. Yeah, so that's then click levels. Perfect. Click boosts. All right. Scroll up a little bit. Let me see.
So wait,
question.
This is hex staked. So there's 5,000 hex staked.
Yeah, that's how much hex was used to make this stake. 5,000 hex.
Why does it say up against 2 million when there's way more than 2 million? Or is that of the wallet that did this?
Maybe, yeah, that might have been it. I have no idea what that number is, but that hex staked, I'm pretty sure is the amount of hex used to make that stake. I'll double check that.
Okay, I'll pull up another one too, see if it has a different amount. And then that might give us information on this. But go ahead.
5,369. Calculate.
Oh, maybe these are all the same wallet.
Yep, yeah, but 0.274 T shares. So it's probably made a little bit earlier when the share rate was a little bit higher. So yeah, that's correct. That 5,000 number in the levels section is how much hex was used to create the stake. So that's 100 hex was used.
What does this 2 million represent then?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It might just be something that you have to have in there for the thing to pop up. But what exactly means, I'm not sure. Because it's definitely not how much hex will be given to you at the very end.
So this is 5,000 is how much hex has actually been staked.
Yeah, how much has actually been staked, and I think that Hedron mintable is correct. 199,000 out of the 314. Sorry, not thousand. Yeah, 1,000 out of 314 million is able to be mintable today if you bought this. If you wanted to mint the stake. So what you could do is you could take that $5,000, multiply it by the hex price, which is 7 cents right now. So 5,000 times 0.078, and then that's $390, which was needed to make the stake, which you would need to make that same stake today. And then you could add the dollar value of the Hedron. I would do the total Hedron probably. That would probably be a good fair estimate. But you could also do the Hedron that's mintable now. Either one. As of right now, that's dust. 314 million is not that much. 314 million is probably about might be $100 actually. Yeah, I think it's $100.
So what's the price of? Well, let me just pull up on a separate tab, Nomics, and I'll just check the price of Hedron.
Yeah.
Very quickly. You guys were listening. Thank you as we work through this. This is
doing it live.
Yes, this is what we're doing.
So let's see, 314, 123, 123. That's $270. So plus 270 because that amount is pretty much locked in. So we could price it in if we want. So that would be $660. In order to, it'd be $390 to make the stake, but you're getting about $660 worth of value when the stake ends. Well, actually, we could do it. We do two numbers. We could do the amount of dollar value that it's worth today in terms of the total amount already accrued and the total amount of Hedron that you can mint today. And then we can also do a value of how much it'll be worth at the very end. And then the assumption we'd have to make is a consistent T-share payout per T-share rate.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up something called browser board. You can use this in your videos if you find it valuable, but it allows you, it's a digital whiteboard that allows you to talk about shit on video. So you guys can see this, right? Okay. Hi, right? You can do this and you can draw in here. So what was that number that we had? I think it was, I'll actually ask you about it. So it's basically 200,000 Hedron. right?
Yeah. 200,000. Yeah, that was how much was in there.
What's
There's
the
300,000. 300,000.
199,600.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Okay, whatever. So
yeah.
200K, and then it was 5,000 hex, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So what's the dollar amount for each one of these? If we take the Hedron, 200K times the price of Hedron is 0.00. There's 6 zeros.
It's 17 cents.
So okay, so here let me change the color.
Nothing. It's nothing.
Yes. 17 cents. Okay, cool. 17 cents. And then the hex stake
is 390.
$390.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is $390 and 17 cents. Right? To be able to have this with no liquidity premium. Now, when we take a look at the actual price on that stake, the HSI stake, I'm going to look at it real quick. Background. Have you started looking at any of the prices? It's $2,000, so it's ridiculously overpriced.
Yeah.
Ridiculously overpriced.
Yeah, I would say that's way. Yeah.
Oh, you guys couldn't see any of this. Darn it, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was drawing this all out.
Yeah, he's doing it for himself. You just need to visualize it for yourself, man. Nobody else needed to see it.
Okay, so have you gone through and started to price out any of the NFTs on OpenSea to see if any of them are not trading at a ridiculous premium? Because that's a ridiculous premium.
Personally, not yet. Just because I don't really have any capital to deploy in that direction. So it hasn't been something I've been paying that fine detail of attention to. If I just have a heuristic or a formula that I can use, then that's good enough. And whenever the opportunity comes and I have cash and I want to potentially deploy it in that direction, that's when I would go looking at specific stakes. But I haven't looked too specifically right now. The thing that I've been thinking about is, so you could do that calculation that we just did, which is like the I would say that's the base value, that's the lowest valuation you can get. You could also do a calculation based on what the stake could potentially be worth at the end, at today's current price. So like if the T-share rate or the payout per T-share rate is like what? It's like six hex per T-share, something like that right now.
Pull it up.
Look at hex daily stats.
Yes, yeah, just over 6. Yes, it is.
Yeah, 6. We'll just do 6. So 6 times it was 0.28. So this thing would get 1.68 hex per day times 369. You get an extra 619 hex in the stake times 0.078 if we want to evaluate it at today's price. That's an extra $48. So plus 390. So then the upper bounds at today's price would be $438. When the stake is over.
So what we could do is,
and then you'd add all that Hedron on top of it too. So then you would add and
this is the. Can you guys see this? Let me make sure I'm not just drawing for myself again.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so we have the hex, and this is about $47. You said, I think. Okay, and then you have the total amount of Hedron extra that we could get, which was 314 billion minus 200K, so basically 314 million. So what does that price come out to be?
314, 123, 123, $270.
Okay, so this is going to touch. Then I want to answer that question that Constantine, I think his name was asked in the thing. I can't see the comment at this moment. Okay, so what does this come out to be? 270 plus 47 plus 390 plus 17.
708.
708.
Yeah, and that would be the upper bound of the stake's value at the end of the stake. So it's like a range between 390 and 708. Would be like the range of value from now till the end of the stake at today's price. So yes, that's another variable because
the premium is. I'm just going to read through it, and then you can talk about it. Crypto Games Club at 369. Thank you for joining and the comments. The premium is based on the potential in the owner's mind. Yes.
Yep. So like, what will the hex price be at the end of that stake is an extra variable you can add on top of that if you wanted to speculate on price.
But then you're like you're like, what are you speculating on? Because it's $2,000, so you can pay $700 for stuff, or
but
go ahead.
Yeah, the thing that throws a wrench into that is you could just buy that hex off the market now and make that stake yourself, so that it doesn't really matter all too much. There's no reason to pay a premium now for the potential for it to hit zero in the future when you can just get that price appreciation yourself by making the stake yourself.
Yes, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So Constantine, I don't get why anyone would buy that when they could get that hex today for $400 instead of pay. Yes, correct. Nobody will buy it.
No one's going to buy that. No one will buy that. These stakes will have to sell at a discount versus what you can get them off the market, because somebody is trying to get liquidity from their stake based on, okay, so when you are selling your stake, you're trying to get liquidity that you can't get because your coins are locked up, correct? Now,
so it could sell at a discount is what you're going to get.
It should sell at a discount. It should sell at a discount, but but it won't sell at a discount relative to what you would get if you emergency end stake. Because what you emergency end stake is what you can get taking those emergency end stake penalties is your liquidity. That's how much liquidity you have, because you can get that out immediately, whenever you want. So it won't sell less than that, but when you're selling it on the market, you're trying to get more than that. So you're trying to get some value that is higher than the amount of dollar value you would get today if you emergency end stake. So that's a good number to know. How much value is there in that stake if it emergency end stake currently?
That's the floor. That would be kind of like the floor price, right? If you're 70 days into a 369-day stake, then it's zero, right? So you have from zero to whatever it sells at. Crypto Games Club says basically people that understand the math will be buying the HSIs that are discounted in the current market. So I guess we'd have to run through all 500 of them, and which we will not be doing. But somebody could probably put together something like a bot or something above what I'm capable of doing at this moment in time to scan through these and just do this simple math. Because at any point, if any of these become a discount, right? Because what happens, right? Because Crypto Games Club, thank you. This is definitely with the help of Crypto Sloth. So that floor price would be the minimum that they'll sell for. And if at some point we see a hex spike in price, right? Let's say that hex came to say 21 cents. Do you want to run these through real quick one more time?
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's say the hex is now 21 cents, and let's double the price of Hedron.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be. I'll let you change the color here. So this is 34 cents. By the way, if you guys are listening to this, you should like and subscribe to my channel as well as Crypto Sloth's channel.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that compliment, Crypto Games Club. I appreciate it, man.
Yes. I missed the comment because I'm looking at this whiteboard, but
nope, you're good.
Killing it, bro. Yes, I agree. He definitely is. Okay, so what does this come out to be at 20 cents?
$1,050.
$1,050. Right. So that's the hex. Okay, now this is the future value of. So we're just going to call this F. Right. So this is the future value of the hex earned on the 0.28 T shares during that time, and that is what, sir? It was I think it was 1.28 per day of hex that was earned per day.
Yeah, it was like 680, something like that. So times 0.21, it's $142.
$142. Cool, awesome. Because if you're listening to this, if you understand or grasp what's going on, and I don't know if anybody else has built a bot for this, that's like an easy excuse to just not do the work. If you actually go through and do the work and understand what we're doing here, you might be able to go to OpenSea and find a discount. As soon as the hex price jumps, as soon as hex price starts going up, the equivalent have to go into here and remember to update their price, which means that you could get a discount on your shit as soon as there's a hex price that jumps. What does this come out to be? Oh, actually, this is just
double. Yeah.
Yeah. What is that? 540.
Yep. So let's see, 540 plus 142 142 plus 1050 is $1,732.
$1,732. By the way, I should have been an artist. I should have been. Do you guys see how crypto slots? Do you see how awesome I am at this?
Yeah, I love it.
An artist.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of cool comments in here, so I'm just going to touch on these. But so even at that price, it doesn't make sense. It would have to be like 24 cents or 26 cents or something.
Yeah, that is a good point you bring up. Like, because Hex is pretty volatile, like it can do a couple multiples like fairly quickly under the right circumstances. So if you're faster than the people who have their stuff listed, you could scoop up prices for a large discount if they're not properly priced.
Because think about people, right? People are going to be busy. People go on vacation. People don't pay attention to crypto probably as much as I do or you do, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to be like, hey, let me list this here. And then they might just be doing, maybe they're at dinner, right? And then they don't realize this or pay attention to this kind of stuff. Constantine, is there a combination of flash loans and Hedron? I'll let Crypto Sloth try to answer that one.
No flash loans. I'm not super knowledgeable about flash loans, but essentially my understanding of them is like you can take out a loan and like close it within like 1 or 2 blocks, and then like get like a stupid amount of money out of like a liquidity pool or something like that. I don't know how they work, but it's essentially something like that, where you just borrow an absorbent amount of money really quickly to get some position and then exit really quickly as well. But that's not what Hedron is.
So Crypto Game Club saying the same, or I don't have a very great understanding.
Like you could like say like Hedron's $1, you can borrow $5 million, you could put it in for a day, get like $50,000 and like a 30% APR thing, and then remove it and then pay off all your loan. Like I guess that would be like the closest thing to like a flash loan if you really wanted to. But
got to take compliment.
Hustle Headquarters 360. Go to my channel. There's a video called Hedron HSI Risk Reward Calculator, something like that. And then there's a link to a public Google Drive folder that has it on there for you to download. Go take it, go use it.
Put your link in the comments here, so if anybody wants to check it out, I just shared the link. Should be coming up in a second. You can click over to Crypto Sloth's channel, and what's the video called they would search for?
It's like HSI Advances Risk to Reward Calculator, something like that.
And in the description on that video, you'll find an open file that you can download and access. Access for yourself. Cool. You like numbers so much. I agree. I also enjoy numbers. That's probably one of the reasons we enjoy talking so much. This has been great. What other thoughts do you have on any of this, or closing thoughts, or anything else you want to bring up?
I guess I'll bring up something that I like about this whole system a lot, and it's not unique to the Hedron system, but it does apply this principle to our hex stakes, and that it's this protocol is it gives us the ability to take out decentralized debt. It's a decentralized line of credit. And when we think about the principles that make Hex so appealing, specifically its trustlessness and how we don't have to go to any middleman to get yield. We can get yield directly from interacting with the contract, just me and the contract. We now have the ability to take out debt just by interacting with the smart contract. It's just us and the Hedron set of smart contracts. And so that's one of the beautiful things I think about this system as a whole, is that now we no longer have to go to anybody in order to take out debt. We have access to a line of credit completely decentralized and completely trustless, which I think from a first principle standpoint is pretty cool. And which is why I want to see this system succeed in the long term, and which is why I believe it will.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's super fascinating, and that also Hedron is stacked on top of this, on top of Hex, right? Hex is awesome, and then they have something else that's stacked on top of there. It's just probably going to be beneficial in the end at helping increase the adoption, because people who are they don't want to lock up their shit because they've done that before and they effed up, and then they over leverage themselves, and then they have to fire sell something at a stupid discount. They're like, oh, well, it definitely makes sense for me, being that type of person, right, who over leverages. There's going to be those type of people out there. They're going to use HSI stakes. They're definitely going to use HSI stakes. I just figured out, and this will be the last thing here. I just figured out, I think, what happens on OpenSea when we were looking at this number. Remember how the max? So the max
Gotcha.
number of hex staked in one of these
Gotcha. I see.
NFTs is 2 million.
Yeah.
So
oh, here's something else too. Another factor that we didn't talk about in evaluating these stakes is the timeline by which the stake is made. So, you know, 1 T-share for 1 day and 1 T-share for a max 5,555 days aren't equal, but they're not equal in different ways when it comes to buying these stakes, because sometimes maybe you want to buy a stake that's coming out sooner because you're going to have liquid hex more immediately, and sometimes maybe you want to buy the longer stake because you get more trustless yield over time. So that factor of time, I think, is going to be really important to factor in when you're evaluating these stakes. Maybe you need a little bit of hex more now and you can get it at a discount by buying a shorter stake. And then maybe you just want some stakes that go out long term. It's something to consider when you're buying these stakes too, because liquid hex is pretty powerful too. And this is very determinant on your own personal situation as well. It's kind of like an X factor that's really hard to calculate. I'd love to be able to mathematically represent it in a formula, and I think it's possible. I just have to think it out.
So also what you're describing is true, because if you have something that's, I don't know for sure, but I saw that there was a timer that expired on OpenSea. So if somebody were to do an HSI stake and then they list that as an NFT, you know, now, or say now is in the future, T=1, then you have this thing that was done in the past where the T-share the cost to get a T-share or the rate to get a T-share was lower, right? So at some point in the future, that's also going to be more appealing.
Yeah.
So say if there was a 10-year HSI stake that is now selling as an NFT, when there was, 10 years, maybe that was like 17,000 hex to get that at the time. And that's going to be more appealing to people as time goes on, because you won't be able to get that same T-share. Well, at least a lot of people, focus on T-shares. Would be a better way of saying that. Yeah. Where can people find you? Where's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel, you linked it before, Crypto Sloth. Just leave a sub there, and then on Twitter, I'm SlothCrypto3 at SlothCrypto3. Here, I'll throw that in the chat. I'll throw that link in the chat.
Constantine wants me to ask you if you want to come to the gym, bro. Hey, when you're in Florida, let me know. We can get
I'd love to come to the gym. If you're ever in North Carolina, hit me up.
Yes, well, my buddy's actually driving up there this weekend because he's buying a house up there.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah, I don't remember the town he's buying it, but yeah, sure that.
That's my Twitter. You can find me on there. Hit me up.
Go double the Hedron at the snapshot. Oh, we didn't even talk about this. The 4 versions of Hedron, right? If there's any wrapped Hedron. Thank you for bringing that up, Constantine. If there's any wrapped versions, if anybody decides to bridge over their Ethereum Hedron, can you have 5 more minutes? Okay. So there's going to be somebody that has a large bag of Hedron that's going to get a copy on Pulse. And now they're going to have a large bag of Hedron on Pulse, and that would be, behoove them to bridge that over and create a pair with their wrapped Hedron against Pulse Hedron, right? And create that pair there. And if that pair is not trading at 1-for-1, then somebody can double or more, depending if it's 1-for-2, right? If there's a wrapped Hedron for one of these for 2 of the Pulse Hedron, the copied, then somebody could double the amount of Hedron they have, which would help them if, too bad you couldn't have the marketplace be on Hedron.pro so that would remove the circulating supply of Hedron. like to purchase NFTs. So the marketplace to purchase the NFTs was also on Hedron.pro, so that you could actually remove more Hedron from the.
Oh, you're saying like buying the stakes via like with Hedron?
Yes.
Well, that's possible. Just whatever front end that sells NFTs, like say Mintra, for example, if they just have an option to say, buy in Pulse, USDC, or Hedron, like you can set prices for all of them. Like on OpenSea, like you can set prices in USDC or make bids in USDC and ETH. So like theoretically, it's possible. Somebody just has to build it.
Yes, cool, awesome, interesting. I appreciate everybody who's listening. If you want to check out my stuff, it's linked down below. There's Twitter down below. I actually have a bet with Motley bet me trying to be a big man on the block that I'm not able to beat his Twitter following by July 30th. So if you guys want to help out, jump over to Twitter, press the follow button, retweet something, jump over to Crypto Sloths, say what's good for him, what's good over there. If you have any questions related to Hedron, he is the man to talk to. I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate that, man.
The insights you were dropping tonight are awesome. I really liked what you were talking about with the if people do the advance. I'm not sold that people are going to do the advance personally. I think it's just going to be a really small number of people. If you think otherwise or you have a good point on that, please share it with me. But I just don't see a lot of people using that advance. But if there is even a tiny fraction of people that will potentially offset the inflation, right? Like it could be deflationary if there's even a tiny percentage of people that use the loan function and don't repay. So that could be a deflationary asset over time, potentially. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on. I had a ton of fun. It's always a pleasure talking with you, Sam. And thanks everybody for hanging out with us for this past hour and a half. This has been a blast.
This has. Sweet. I'll talk to you soon, brother. Peace out.
Yep.
Later, guys. End this.